practice, these teachings from my tradition, Tibetan Buddhism. They're called Lojong. Lojong is mind training. So it's these pithy slogans, verses, 59 of them in the collection, that were brought to Tibet from this Indian master, Atisha. And it kind of condenses like the whole Buddhist path, because there's so many texts and scriptures of Buddhism to read and study. But here, there's these little slogans that were collected to remind the practitioner of what's most important, and to train his mind, to train our minds, mind training, to train, you could say even to untrain that habit. What habit? From the Buddhist point of view, the habit of self-clinging, self-cherishing, me. What about me? What's in it for me? What do I get out of it? Forget them. I'll take care of my own. Me first, right? So the Buddha said, he taught the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering, and there's the cause of suffering. What is the cause? Ignorance. Ignorance, self-clinging, ego, me. This is the cause of suffering. It's a pretty radical way of thinking, you're looking at it, but we really have to, look at it. Even the Buddha even said, don't just go by what I tell you. Look at that, Practice and see what you discover. What is the cause? There's another Buddhist master, Shantideva, who said, all the suffering I'm paraphrasing here, all the suffering in the world comes from wanting happiness for oneself. All the suffering in the world comes from wanting happiness for this one. All the pleasure in the world comes from wanting happiness for others. All the happiness in the world comes from wanting happiness for others, from one wanting happiness for the other. And all the suffering comes from me first. What about me? When I first read that quote, that was very, kind of turned my mind, because we're used to the other way, right? All the happiness in the world comes because I want happiness. But not, in the suffering, all the suffering comes from me wanting happiness for me. We say, well, what's wrong with that? Not wrong, you could say. It's not wrong to, want something, want happiness, want a good meal, want a job, just want happiness, right? But the problem, the Buddha said, the cause of suffering is this extreme holding on to this self, this one. I want happiness. And forget the others, So these teachings, these slogans here are reminders to turn that. So to always turn that from inward, me, what about me, to others. And then also, not just others, you might say it's kind of a dualistic practice, me and others, helping Jennifer, helping Ray. It's dualistic, subject, object, and the action, right? Buddhism's also big on dualism. That's a problem. Separation. We separate me and you. Me, us, and them. And suffering, because we're holding on to our position, identifying with me, I'm right, what about me? But in this practice here, we start off with that. We call it relative, conventional reality, because we are experiencing subject and object, Dualism, right? But the problem is that we hold on to it tightly. We really believe there is something out there separate from me. But when we begin to look at our condition, start working with it, start learning these practices, this way of looking at the world relatively we use that in a beneficial way. We use it in the beneficial way to arrive at the non-separation. No subject, no object, no action. If we look at it in reality, nothing's happening. Nothing's solid, fixed, unchanging, right? Just, you can even say, well, if nothing exists, what's going on? It's like, no, there is existence, but temporary. It appears and disappears. Even our body, ourselves, we think we're permanent. But from this morning to this afternoon, I probably got more gray hairs now than I did this morning, right? My nails are growing longer, right? We're changing. I'm hungry now. I wasn't hungry this morning, So change. So that's like to look at, realistically look at reality. So that's what these little slogans here do. Help remind us of what we're practicing, and what we're working with to reverse that self-cherishing attitude, always me. So the slogans, there are 7 points, 59 verses. I have 6 verses left, so I'm going to go through 3 today, and then I'll conclude it next month. So this is the 7th point, which focuses on our commitments to practice. So by this point here, it's assumed that okay, we've been reading all these. We're up to the 54th verse slogan. We've been implementing these other 53, putting them into practice. We didn't stop at verse 3 and say this isn't for me. We're kind of into it. So these verses now are to our commitment. Remember your commitment to training your mind, to changing your mind. So these verses are: train wholeheartedly, liberate yourself by examining and analyzing, and don't wallow in self-pity. It's an interesting one. So the first one, train wholeheartedly. This is a little commentary from Pema Chodron. I don't know if you're familiar with her, a nun, American nun, Tibetan nun. So train wholeheartedly. She says, train enthusiastically in strengthening your natural capacity for compassion and loving kindness. Train enthusiastically, wholeheartedly. Because, by this point too, it's kind of difficult, to really work in this way with these slogans. And we can kind of have an attitude of this is too much, or I'm not doing it right. We kind of give up, We're not whole. We could say our heart isn't in it, You might say I don't know, my heart wasn't in it, So this slogan, to train wholeheartedly, is with your whole heart, To see, really look at, to kind of reflect on how, by this point, how are you seeing things? How are we seeing things, relating with things, Helpful or not helpful? Like the Buddha said, if it helps, maybe you should adopt it and practice it. If it's not beneficial, then that's okay. That was very revolutionary also for someone to say, because it's not dogma. It's not do this, Buddha even said, here, train wholeheartedly. If you find it helps, you should do it. If you don't find it beneficial, then cast it aside. That was very revolutionary for someone, in that position to share something like that. For me, it was encouraging. It was oh, okay, let me try this out. So this, she says here, train enthusiastically. So with enthusiasm, sometimes, life happens and we're all For me personally, when I would react and, with emotion, I'd be God, there I go again. I did it again. I'm not doing it right. This isn't working. It's no, that's the practice. That's the process. That's the process. If that doesn't come up, then it's not working. It's not working on us. As I mentioned earlier, we think we're working on it or practicing, but actually the practice is doing us. You know? So when that comes up, oh yeah, yeah. And lean into it. Make peace with whatever we're experiencing, especially what we're experiencing as uncomfortable. Judging ourselves. I'm not doing it right. I don't know if I can do this. People are a pain in the ass. There's too many of them, you know. This will never work. That's a goal-oriented mind. Expectations. Hope and fear, you know. All the stuff that this is how we work. Our habits, you know. But as she says, train enthusiastically in strengthening your natural capacity for compassion and loving kindness. You're natural. That's who we are. We're naturals. We're naturals. This is our capacity. This is our true nature. This is our being. Confused, and then we suffer. As the Buddha says, the first noble truth, there is suffering. There's the cause, ignorance or confusion. Say we're confused, that's all. But our true nature is there. Compassion and loving kindness is there. Jennifer experienced it in silence. We were sitting for 30 minutes. Nobody was, you know, offering to, you know, pull her chair in or doing some action, you know. Action is not necessary. Yeah, I mean, it helps if we can do something with our action, but really it's our mind. The mind that's, you know, the intention is virtue. To be of service, to be beneficial. A mind at ease. A mind at ease, naturally, responds with compassion and loving kindness. That's our nature. Our nature isn't aggression. Our nature isn't jealousy. Our nature isn't greed and pride. That's confused. That's our nature is confused. It's not even our nature. Our nature is just like space. It's just, but you know, the habit of me. I like it. I don't like it. Change. We want to change reality. We're not experiencing reality realistically. What does that mean? Unpleasantness. Experience it. But we want to change it. But what if we just, whoa, this is tough. How can I respond? What can I do? You know? Rather than go away, push it away. When's this over? That's our habit. And we struggle with that. We make it difficult for ourselves. We make it difficult for our world. We're struggling. What if we just make peace? What does that mean? Does it mean, okay, you can do whatever you want? No, it's just, it could be, or it could be, whew, that was rough. That's okay. But to be in that in touch with our nature, which is compassion and loving kindness. Not just for the external, that's relative, right? Because, remember, from absolute reality, nothing's happening. There is no outside. But relatively, there is. So it doesn't mean love, compassion and loving kindness. Okay, this is really rough. I have to practice loving kindness and compassion. It's loving and compassion for us. Starts here. Starts here. And then expands out. even in silence. Sitting in silence. People experience that compassion and loving kindness that many of us here are becoming more and more familiar with, are in touch with that. And a place like this, Long Beach Meditation Sunday afternoon, Mondays, it's a good place. As soon as we come here, right, with our minds, I'm going to come here, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to be around people who are, just at ease. I don't know if anybody comes here and goes like, man, I come there to Long Beach Meditation. There's a guy I really just can't stand there. And that Jampa guy that goes up there and talk, God, I can't stand him, but oh well. No, we come here already, And it's good to have something like this. You could say it's like we're playing it safe. We're playing it safe. Using, this activity, this place to come and cultivate, refine our familiarity with our true nature more and more. The conditions are here, makes it easy for that to happen. That's why it's important to have a Sangha community like this, a center, a Long Beach Meditation that provides this. We come here with that feeling to connect with that. Connect with what? Sometimes we don't know, but it's that, to connect to our true nature and experience something like you did. In silence. Wow. So this kind of builds our muscle. Because when we go to work, we might not have the same experience as coming to Long Beach Meditation on a Sunday afternoon. Right? Maybe it's a good day, or maybe it's a busy day and the boss is yelling at you, or projects. But if we say like, oh man, I wish I was at Long Beach Meditation right now, we're forgetting that we're always home. We're always home. Home is where the heart is. Remember that. So wherever you're at, home is where the heart is. So that means home is everywhere. We live everywhere. Home is where the heart is. So as I said, when we're in our everyday world, oh yeah, I remember sitting at Sunday meditation, or sitting at home. If we have a regular practice in the mornings, wherever sitting, oh yeah, I remember that. And we're able to ground ourselves on the 405 in traffic, at work, a neighbor yelling at us. We're able to be grounded. We don't ignore. Everything's groovy, man. Everything's fine. No, it's like it can be ugh, but we're there, present, and with the posture. This is the importance of the posture too, holding this sense of dignity, not arrogance, but just dignity, and being present. You'll notice the more we do it, as you go throughout your day, your posture will change. You'll be up like this, looking around, not like trying to hide from the world or experience. You're like, whew, let's go. So train wholeheartedly. Reminder, And there's a practice tip. It says, pay attention to the boundary between wholehearted practice and a more vague and lukewarm approach. Notice your thinking process, your body sensations, and emotional undercurrents. What happens at those moments in which you click in and are really practicing? Those moments of, as I mentioned, unpleasant, that's where it kicks in. That's where the practice is. When everything's great, like, on Sunday afternoon, Long Beach Meditation, it's good. Good to build our muscle, but we're playing it safe. We're in an environment conducive for our practice. But we have to remember, we got to leave the nest. And remember. Mindfulness, that's to remember. Mindful. And the next slogan is liberate yourself by examining and analyzing. And she says, know your own mind with honesty and fearlessness. See what leads to more freedom and what leads to more suffering. This can liberate you from continually getting hooked by self-centered thoughts and emotions, the root of all dissatisfaction, the root of suffering, self-centeredness, self-clinging. So, liberate yourself by examining and analyzing. So that means whatever comes up, whatever we're experiencing, it's most important if it's uncomfortable, examine it and analyze it. We usually push away or distract ourselves. Oh man. Netflix, food, shopping, music, jogging. What are we running from? This is what we do. It's our habit. Good, bad? No, not good or bad. But see, we have to analyze, examine and analyze. How is that benefiting oneself and others? You know? This one you could say, how's it benefiting me? You might say, like, well, wait a minute, I thought we were supposed to forget about the me. Relatively, we have this one. You know? So we have to see what helps our mind, our condition, what benefits it. If it benefits us in a wholesome way, then it's going to benefit the environment, the world, our friends. If it doesn't benefit us, it causes us suffering, a habit of continual, and then that's what we send out. So, liberate yourself with examining and analyzing it. Looking at what the triggers, right? We think the trigger's out there. So-and-so triggers me. No. The trigger is here, this one, this self-clinging mind. I don't like. If that was a trigger, if Ray triggered me, I really believe in that, it's causing me suffering, that means that Ray would trigger everybody in this room, right? Ray is a trigger. I say he's a trigger. And I believe that, so I suffer. Trigger. So examine and analyze. Well, not really. So Ray, I'm happy with Ray sometimes. He's pleasant. But whenever he does this, triggers me. If that was true, Ray would trigger everybody in the room, right? But it's not so. If we examine and analyze. It's this one here who I like or I don't like. Grasping, aversion. So what's the practice? Liberate yourself. What is to be liberated? We're at ease. We're in equanimity. We say equanimity in Buddha Dharma. Rest in equanimity. Not balance. Not falling to one side or the other. Free from attachment and aversion. So we hear a lot in Buddhism that grasping, desire, craving is the problem, right? But also aversion. Pushing away. I don't want it. Grasping, grabbing, attaching, I want it. Clinging is I like. Pushing away, I don't like. Both have I. I like, I don't like. So liberate yourself by examining and analyzing. And she says, bring to mind something that gets a rise out of you. Notice the heightening of emotionality and the arising of a kind of frozen and solid self-regard. Try to stay with that experience and to examine it in depth as a mental, bodily, and emotional sensation. In doing so, remember that mind training is gentle, so don't begin with your most challenging and deep-rooted habit patterns, but with something more ordinary. Yeah, it could be like coffee got cold. I don't like it. But this is, in my tradition, in Tibet Buddhism, we call this Vajrayana. Vajrayana Buddhism is working with the emotions, these things that come up. In other traditions, you could say like at initial steps in practicing Buddhism, the Dharma, is to recognize that emotion and apply loving kindness, apply an antidote. Greed, practice generosity. Aggression, practice loving kindness. Yeah, I'm supposed to be loving kind. But at this level, in the Vajrayana, aggression, no antidote. The aggression is the antidote. The poison is the medicine. If you examine and analyze, make peace with it. Just lean into it. Let's see, rather than, What do you see with that aggression? We see that, as I mentioned earlier, it happened. But look at how we're reacting to it when it comes to mind. Nothing's happening, but we have this emotional, he made me so angry. Okay, I got to let that go. What are you doing? I was practicing, and this person made me angry. Right now? No, last week. But you still feel that energy. And you hold on to these grudges, right? You see people who hold grudges for years. That was like, why? It's like walking around with a bag of smelly laundry, which we can wash. Or leave it aside and continue. But this is our work. We have to see that. Sometimes people will tell us, but we resist. We push away. Don't tell me what to do. But it's really most important to... And sometimes we might listen to someone's advice. You come to a Dharma talk, you're listening to what I'm saying. Maybe it's resonating with you. Maybe you're all like, he's full of shit. I don't believe that. Okay, that's okay. Also. But look at your mind that says he's full of, look at that mind. That's the work, not me. Look at the mind that resists, or pushes away, aversion. So we liberate ourselves by examining and analyzing. Because without that, then we're in bondage by our emotions, our traumas, our experiences, unpleasant experiences especially, Even pleasant experience, right? We suffer because of a pleasant experience. Why? Because it changes eventually, right? Relationships end. Oh, I remember I was so happy. But then it ends. We forget. Impermanence, change. Always. As couples even. I just got married in September. My wife and I could, it's going to change. Oh, you're going to break up? No. Well, who knows really, but one of us is going to check out, right? So it ended. So that's impermanence, Do we suffer with that? We can, or we can make peace with it, lean into it. And things change. Everything changes. And when we really come to a place where we've made peace with that, then we're fully present. We're fully with the experience of a happy relationship, enjoying it, I used to tell my wife now when we talk, we'd have sushi and I'd order a beer or something like that. And I would say, I could see, if, we resist change, right? So I told her, I could sit here and just watch that beer for the whole time we're here for hours. You might say, like, aren't you going to drink that? And I'll say, no, I don't want it to go away. I don't want it to finish. But I've never tasted it, because I'm afraid that I'll drink it and it's gone. And I suffer. But if we understand that, the impermanence, then we enjoy with the knowledge of this will change too, And we can have that with unpleasant situations, but we forget. We remember that, this is going to change. This happiness, this pint of beer is going to finish, and I'll be unhappy. And we forget that unpleasant situations also have the same are made of the same nature. They change, impermanent. Really uncomfortable right now. Right now. Next right now. Next right now. It'll change. And then the last one is don't wallow in self-pity. And Pema Chodron says, catch yourself when you do this and recognize that it just increases your suffering and that of others. And it says, when your practice is not going well or you feel it is too hard, you may begin to regret undertaking it in the first place. It's easy to start to feel sorry for yourself. Yeah, so self-pity, I'm not doing it right, or man, back to square one, I thought I was really making progress, now this thought came back again, and they were like, oh, poor me. That's also a form of self-clinging. We're identifying, It could be, oh, look at me, what about me? Or it could be, poor me. Both are still self-clinging, and what about me? It's really, identifying with someone's here. It's my emotions, it's my feeling, it's mine. So we get down, especially when it comes to practice. But I hear so many people. I had a woman on Friday who came to an online session that I teach, and she shared that she hadn't been attended in a while, but she had been there before, and she came this time. It had been a while, and she reflected on how good she felt afterwards, and remembering that practice helps her. But she was telling me that she was kind of like just doing her thing in the world. She noticed like turning on Netflix, some series, and then playing some puzzle, not even paying attention. And she noticed that it was just distraction. And this is what we do. We distract from self-pity, I don't feel good, or something, unpleasant, or just confusion. We don't know. What do? We distract. And she recognized that she was liberating herself by examining and analyzing. She examined and analyzed what was going on. What am I doing? And she remembered what helped, what made her feel grounded, more grounded. Her practice, her practice. So very important. And the tip here for this one is we expect so much from the world and from other people. When those expectations are not met, we feel angry and sorry for ourselves. Notice the kinds of experiences you have and the relationship between those expectations and the arising of disappointment and self-pity. Yeah. So again, our work to look. Expectations, as I mentioned earlier, we have expectations, hope and fear. So, those are the three slogans. Don't wallow in self-pity, liberate by examining and analyzing, and train wholeheartedly. Train your mind with your whole heart. Not halfway, go all the way. Train little by little. Always look at your state of mind. Don't fixate on the external. Look at the state of mind, the mind that's experiencing, that perception, that consciousness that perceives this, and either I don't like it or I like it. It's like, examine, what is that? Who's doing that? Nobody's home.